Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Mondays with Mindy. Still coming to you safe at home with my co-host, co-producer, and co-pilot, Christian Brescia.
Hi, everybody.
Today, we get to gab with a man who personifies creativity, Mickey Boardman. He is the editorial editor for Paper Magazine. He's also a writer, teacher, speaker, and host. He's an active commentator on the New York social and fashion scenes, and has been the go-to fashion guru for VH1, A&E, E! Television, and CNN Style Channel. Mickey graduated from Purdue University and then attended the Parsons School of Design for fashion design. Since 1993, he has written his advice column, Ask Mr. Mickey, for Paper, and has had numerous other articles published in New York Magazine, Out, and German Vogue, among others. He's also the one responsible for the infamous shoot when Kim Kardashian broke the internet.
I remember. I forgot about it till I was reading up on him again and was like, oh, wow, this is his big moment. Yeah, one of them.
And he's had many.
Yeah.
Some of the most iconic celebrity photo shoots have come from between Mickey Boardman's ears.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. Anyway, we will talk about that and many other amazing photographs that have made him celebrities' choice to art direct their shoots. He was recognized as one of New York Magazine's most photographed faces in New York and voted by Fashion Week Daily as one of the most invited people.
Wow.
He has been written about with the same frequency that he writes. And I have to say, there's nothing quite like sitting front row with Mickey Boardman. I have met more of my favorite icons, being Mickey's plus one. Also a philanthropist, Mickey has been active in many charitable efforts, including his famous sidewalk sale at Screaming Mimi's in Soho, benefiting CITA, that's CITTA. It's a charity that builds schools, clinics, and women's cooperatives in India and Nepal.
Wow.
We'll talk more about that because he is extremely passionate about that and makes at least 2 trips to India a year. His love of India and travel, fashion, New York City, and his healthy obsession with everything to do with European and Russian royals makes him one of the most fascinating friends that I have. This last year, with his deep dive into Weight Watchers and yoga, Mickey has become one of BOF's 500, a professional index of people shaping the fashion industry. He talks and writes about his current weight loss, positive body image, and fitness journey, and how in his 50s, he's embracing his body like never before. Christian, I can't wait to start today's conversation with Mickey Boardman.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Mickey Boardman.
Namaste.
Hello.
So, hello, gorgeous.
How are you?
You know, I'm doing okay. I'm better for seeing your face, that's for sure.
I'm glad. This is such high quality video, I have to say.
Well, and thank you. And speaking of your face,
you bet, Christian.
Mickey,
not me, but you guys.
If I could have you, Mickey, if you'll just pull your screen down a little bit so we can see a little bit more of your beautiful face, that would be helpful. Perfect. For our folks on YouTube, they're going to want to see a better look at you. Perfect. Welcome.
Okay, so thank you to your gorgeous living room. And we always start each episode where Christian and I kind of came up with these 20 questions. I'm going to randomly pick 5.
From the Jonathan Adler pill box, is that what that is? Or pill thing?
It's the secrets one.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to have it. I thought, just to be politically correct, I wouldn't get like the Quaaludes one or the...
They're kind of one and the same, so
or at least
okay.
You'll do that off camera, at least.
Yes. Question number 1. What's your favorite place to travel to and why? I think I know this.
Well, I have several. I'm a Libra, so I love wonderful destinations. I think I have to say India because it's a place that I really love, and I wouldn't say I've been there the most. I've probably been more to Paris and London and maybe LA. But the thing about India that's so great is it's like the United States in that there are so many different things within it. There are so many different types of places. There are beaches and cities and mountains and rivers, and countries have rivers and mountains. Who knew? But so I think on that level, and I love the people, and it's a spiritual home, and I love the colors and the chaos. So I love it really there. But maybe a close second would be Spain or anywhere in Europe. But the truth is I'm happy to go any place. I love discovering any new place. I think it expands your mind. It opens your mind. It also makes me appreciate New York more. I'm never happier to live in New York than when I've just come back from a trip to someplace totally different and I'm riding across the bridge into Manhattan from the airport. And I just think, God, I can't believe I live here. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How are things there? Opening up-ish?
A little bit.
Not really.
No, they are opening up a little bit. And, I've been riding, I joined City Bikes, which I still can't believe exists in New York.
I truly, the world has tilted on its axis. It makes me so happy that you are on City Bike.
I'm afraid to ride the City Bikes.
Well, why are you afraid?
I just, like, in New York City, like, I can get around really well. I used to live there. I love it. But the idea of being on a bicycle there gives me, like, a palpitation.
Well, there's no traffic right now.
Oh, true.
Mindy's right. The thing is,
true.
check with me when traffic is back to normal. Although in certain places, like certain streets are more crowded than others, and certain streets there are even, like going into the tunnel the other day. I was riding by where you go into the tunnel to New Jersey, and there was traffic, and I was a little shocked. But as Mindy said, it's, the streets are basically empty. And I think people also have the attitude, like, people are walking in the street a little bit, or, we kind of, instead of immediately thinking like, get the out of my way, asshole, we're like, okay, there's plenty of room for everybody. I think we're kind of in a more of a neighborly kind of a mood, and it's just great exercise. And I had, there are amazing bike paths all the way around Manhattan, and, great greenery and flower beds and things that I hadn't really ever seen so much before. So, because I don't think I'd ever ridden a bike in New York City. I ride bikes a lot when I go to Miami, or when I go to, like, in Leipzig, Germany, of all places, we rented bikes. I like to rent a bike and kind of get around. But it's been really, really, really fun, I have to say. And it's great exercise. And it's, who knows? I just feel like quarantine is a time to do things you've never done and kind of live a different type of life.
We're gonna get to the other things that you've been doing.
So there you go. So
I'm just so fascinated by. Okay, next question. When was the last time you cried?
Probably yesterday. I don't know if I've cried today, but I am a big believer in crying. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's, the tears cleanse your soul. And I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry sort of anything really sort of rich with emotion makes me cry. And you see so many sweet things on the internet these days, I have to say, whether it's like, I don't even know what, like, I'm trying to think of specifically what it would be, like just something that's really sweet, like, a little kid at a protest, or somebody being kind to an old person, or, just anything really sort of just really gets me. And, there are so many crazy bad things happening right now, and still humans are, I think, in their heart, many humans, not all, but many are really good. So when you kind of see, I'm reminded of either ones of those things that I cry. So I can't think of specifically what it was that made me cry, but often I, scrolling through Instagram, I cry.
Yes. Yeah, same. I tend to cry more over happiness.
Same.
Happy things than sad things anyway.
Same.
Okay. So this is the question that Defin will hearken to one of the other new things that you have been doing in quarantine. Can you cook? The answer now is yes. I know that already. And what is your favorite dish to make? And if you don't cook, what is your favorite dish to consume? I want you to answer it all.
Okay. You want it all.
Always.
I've never cooked until quarantine. I used to get letters from Con Ed, the gas company, saying either the meter is broken or you've never used your stove, because it says 0. Can we disconnect you? And I've always said, no, I don't want you to disconnect me. I think in my 25 years in this apartment, I have twice made Weight Watchers garden vegetable soup because it has 0 Weight Watcher points. And that's just chopping up vegetables and putting them in the pot. So that is cooking in a way.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'd never used my stove. So my new belief during quarantine is you can do anything. And all you need to do is know how to Google and watch a YouTube tutorial. Like, then you can do anything. And that's true. I today hard-boiled eggs in my Instant Pot, which I bought on Target.com. And and they're amazing, I have to say, because I had hard-boiled eggs in quarantine, like since quarantine started, and had to Google it, of course, and I Google it every time because I forget what to do. And it's easier in the Instant Pot to do it, and they're just exactly how I like them. But I had to watch 2 YouTube videos for that just to figure out how to put the lid on the pot, which I did, and now I know how to do it, but I'll probably forget before next time. So, but I will say that, and it's the same.
So you have bought more accoutrement.
I bought
to that kitchen
pot, and I bought, then I was like, that's it. And the thing is, I don't have space in my kitchen really. So on my kitchen table, which I've also reorganized my whole house, I've gone through every closet and every drawer almost. I still have one. I have underneath the bathroom sink I haven't gone through, and it's like literally stacked. It's like, it's like you open the door and it's like fully, it's like a hoarder lives in there. It's like fully from bottom to top. Everything is so wedged in. But which I will go through that maybe this weekend, who knows. But so in my kitchen table used to just be for storage, and I cleaned out underneath my kitchen table, and I found like a pair of rollerblades. I don't know whose they were under there. I found hundreds of gay porn, unopened gay porn DVDs, because I've been on the press list for gay porn companies, because I've worked with porn stars over the years, for in the magazine, and I sort of didn't want to throw them away, and I used to give them Housing Works, an incredible organization that has thrift stores and bookstores, and all the money goes to homeless people with HIV and AIDS. They used to take the adult DVDs, but they don't anymore. So I sort of, whatever. So I just had to throw those away. I apologize. But anyway, so I made room in the kitchen table for the Instant Pot. And then I really love gazpacho. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And I thought, I want to make gazpacho, but I was like, can I just chop it up? And finally, my friend Jamel, who's an amazing chef, he's French, of Algerian descent, but born in France, lives in London. He was said I should, sort of convinced me to get sort of a blender. Because originally I was like, should I get a little Cuisinart? I sort of didn't want to be that gay also who suddenly okay, now I'm going to buy every appliance and I don't even know how to cook. I didn't want to be that gay. But the gazpacho is amazing because you don't have to cook. You just chop. Although I did cut my finger the other day because I bought not chopping. I bought a vegetable peeler and was taking it out of the package, and I gouged myself, but I'll be fine. But anyway, the point of the point of the whole story being, so the gazpacho was super easy to make, and I got a KitchenAid blender also from Target.com. I'm not paid by Target. I'm just telling you that's where I got it. And but otherwise, my favorite thing I made, which was a combination, which originally I was going to make in the Instant Pot, but then I did a FaceTime with my friend in India, Shittage, and we did half cooking on the stovetop and half in the Instant Pot. In the Instant Pot, we cooked a mixture of rice and lentils, and on the stove, we cooked all the vegetables and spices and made this thing called khichdi or kijeri. It has many different names and pronunciations, which was pretty complicated, I have to say, but also extremely delicious and vegetarian. And you can see it on my highlights on my Instagram. But and I've done pasta, but so I would say Indian is my favorite, although that was extremely labor intensive. And also the thing about cooking is, and even I've done pasta, I've done tacos one day. It's just all the dishes and the cleanup and stuff. It's so every person I've come through this quarantine, and everyone who's responsible for dishwashing or house cleaning or homemaking of any kind, I bow down to them, and I have such a new respect. Although I will say my favorite thing to do, my favorite way to spend the day now besides city biking is to vacuum, because I have a new vacuum cleaner, a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and it was as if I was buying a house. It was as if I was
splurged.
I did. It was as if I was buying a house or a car. Can I say the F word? I'm sorry, I keep saying yes.
Yeah, totally okay.
I was like, I got to get a Dyson because they're cool, they're cute, and I'm sort of have a crush on Mr. Dyson, although he was in favor of Brexit, which made me then reevaluate my whole Dyson thing. But I was like, I'm going to get a Dyson, and they have them on QVC, which is affordable. And then I tweeted I'm going to get a vacuum, because then the thing is, I had a vacuum, but it was kind of big and bulky and kind of didn't really serve my needs, and it didn't do so well on the wood floor. It just did okay on the carpet. So anyway, so I tweeted, I need a new vacuum because I'm Harry Homemaker, and I think I'm going to get a Dyson, but I can't decide. And everybody on Twitter said, don't get a Dyson. They look great, but they break down. Get a Miele, M-I-E-L-E.
Miele, no, I'm familiar.
Which are German. So then I was like, oh my God, so I should get that. And so anyway, then I was looking at those, and I just didn't like the look as much, although whatever,
Yeah, they're not bad.
So anyway, in the end, then I talked to a million people and tortured them, and I looked. I read testimonials on QVC.com, which I never have given a shit what anybody said about anything. Like Yelp, I've never read Yelp except as sort of a joke to see how crazy people are, because the people who go on Yelp are lunatics. What is wrong with these people? And so anyway, so there were 500 good evaluations for this Dyson vacuum that was on sale. And a friend of mine, Jacob Brown, had said all he does all day long is vacuum. He's obsessed with his vacuum.
Same.
And he had a Dyson and it made him so happy. So I took the plunge and I bought it. And I'm so happy that I did impressed. Because I don't even put it on the highest suction and it does the trick. And I'm also obsessed. I have a terrible black thumb and I'm terrible with plants. Same. So of course I've decided to clear out like every windowsill in my house to make it like a garden special.
I know, but I've seen some of your Instagram posts. I mean, but you've got it going on now.
I've killed a few, but again, I just Google, how do you care for mums? My mums look dry. What do I do? You know, stuff like that. And I will say, one of my oldest friends from college, Paul, has a live-in gay homosexual boyfriend, whose name suddenly now I forget. Josh. Josh is his name. And he works, he's like an agriculture expert, like he studied agriculture. Oh. So I just, when I went I go regularly, the way I used to go to the drug dealer, I go now to the plant stores that are open, because there's a couple. And I just, I tell myself, get succulents. You cannot kill a succulent. It's really hard to kill a succulent.
Unfortunately.
So well, there you go, But I have like in my bedroom, I have a whole table. And now I have the shade up in my bedroom, which I've never had. It's always been like a cave just to be dark at all times in case I take a nap. Now in the daytime, it's up. So, and I have beautiful succulents. But anyway, you go to the plant store and then of course you're like, well, the succulents are fine, but look at these African daisies. They're so cute. And, so I bought the African daisies, and I will tell you, my African daisies are not doing so great, but I'm trying. And when I FaceTime Josh sometimes, but I'm mostly sticking with the succulents, but, and those are fine. But I don't know, like this whole thing got to me. So I love to vacuum. I love to do all these things. Because the thing is, it's like, we're stuck in our houses. We might as well make the most of it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
I even now have been ordering frames from Etsy, like, and framing things myself, which I had never done. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can reach it. I could show you later. I have this thing I framed, which I actually am not happy with. I'm going to put something else in the frame, but it's like a big drippy gold frame that I'm excited about.
Wow.
So what was the question?
So the question was about cooking. We've now gone on to home decorating and gardening. So I appreciate that. I think you might have answered this question with the Dyson vacuum cleaner, but let's just see. What's your guilty pleasure?
Well, I'm rarely guilty about any pleasure. I am guilty if I'm not doing anything.
Another reason I love you.
Say. I interviewed Marc Jacobs, the designer, and he has a tattoo that says shameless. And, the shameless can sort of have two meanings, where you're shameless, like you do whatever you want and say you to everybody, or shameless, like in a way that you aren't ashamed or embarrassed. And it's a good thing. And he means it in the good way, but also both ways are fun. And so if I feel like if something gives you pleasure, you got to go hard and fast in that. And that means embracing your inner nerd. Like, I'm obsessed with what people are nerds about. Like, and I was going to do like a story on it once, or a book. I don't know. I just, for a long time, I'm obsessed with asking people like what their guilty pleasure is, or something that people would be surprised about. Like, I love royal history. Not that that's such a shock to people, but I am an expert in Queen Victoria's children and grandchildren. I'm like the expert.
Okay.
And I'm not bragging. I just am. And whatever it is.
It's a fact.
Like, I mean, I have different friends. Like, I have this friend who's at the time was a hipster photographer. Now he's an old hipster photographer. And I said to him, like, is there anything you're into that's a little strange? And he said, well, nobody knows, but I'm an expert in origami. And I said, oh my God, that's so funny. Like, that's great. And he said how he had never, and this with me with royal history, no one I knew was into it. So it was something that sort of just lived in my head. And then I knew the internet was an amazing thing, because at first when like the internet came out, because I'm an old person, I was like, oh, wow, great. You know what I mean? What's the big deal? But then even before Google came, even before Netscape, all that, I did a search, because I'd always was in used bookstores, which I really don't care that much for, frankly, because they're dusty and smell, and the people aren't usually very friendly, I have to say, in my experience. But I'm always looking for these old royal biographies or history books, things that are out of print. And so I would scour these used bookstores. Anyway, so I did a Google search for this one book that I'd always been looking for and never been able to find. And I found this guy in Canada who basically had almost every book I ever wanted. Like, he was a royal freak himself. And in addition to having all these books, he also organized royal history tours. And so I signed up for the Nicholas and Alexandra tour of St. Petersburg, like the minute I found this guy in Mississauga, Ontario, which is just outside Toronto.
Oh my gosh, I do know where that is.
So I went on his trip to St. Petersburg, Russia, where I'd never been. And it ended up my dad came with. That's a whole other story. Because I put the deposit down using my emergency credit card that I still have, although actually it expired and I haven't, whatever. But my parents paid for it, but I still technically have one, although I haven't reactivated the new one just to not, because I don't want to use it.
Good.
For a few, this is like 2 years I haven't used it. Anyway, so it's probably doesn't work anymore, even if I did reactivate it. But the point of the story being, so my dad said he asked if he could go, because I had said, I put down the non-refundable deposit for the trip and I have no money to pay for it. Can you, for my birthday or Christmas, sort of help me? And by help me, I mean pay for the whole thing. Pay for it. And my mom was like, well, your dad said he'll pay for the whole thing if he can go with. And I was like, what does he give a shit about royal history? And I had no idea. Because my mother hates to travel, but my dad had always dreamt of traveling to wonderful distant lands. But he never went anywhere because my mother didn't like to travel. So I was like, who knew? So anyway, so he went, and it was the first time in my life I ever spoke out loud about these things. And let me tell you, royal history nuts are the biggest freaks in the world. I mean, they're really freaks.
I've heard you go on a couple rants before.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I am a freak. And so that was an incredible experience. So, and I just think, and who cares if it's not the cool thing to be into? I relate to people most when I kind of hear what they're obsessed with, whether it's, speaking of vacuums, I mean, now I relate to this in a bigger way. I remember once I saw on the Rosie O'Donnell show, which might be celebrating its 24th anniversary today. I think I saw on Instagram, on Twitter. I remember there was a kid on the show whose parents had said to him, and he was like 11 and kind of, he reminded me of myself. He was like a little chunky and a little awkward, but kind of a genius, but kind of like, a regular kid. And his parents had said, if you get all A's, we will take you to Disneyland on your report card if you get all A's. And so he did get all A's. And he said to them, I got all A's, but instead of Disneyland, can we go to the Hoover vacuum factory? Because he's obsessed with vacuum cleaners. And he had like 100 vacuum cleaners by this point. Always for his birthday or Christmas, he would ask for vacuum cleaners. And I was like, and so they did take him to the Hoover vacuum factory. So I was like, a kid who would rather go to that factory than Disneyland, really, I can relate to and I can get behind and support. So anyway.
Wow.
So, but my guilty pleasure is to just lay and do nothing, because I have a real sloth side to me. I can really just flop and watch soap operas nonstop. And I'm not guilty about watching soap operas. I love them. But I sometimes could be doing more constructive things with my life than flopping there.
Whatever. It's all good. Okay, last question. What's the best advice you've been given, and who gave it?
Well, when I'm talking to students or young people, I always say, you're not going to believe me, but everything your mother ever told you is true. Every piece of advice your mother gave you, you've argued with, and you thought, no, Mom, you don't get it. You've never been young. You've never been in love with a guy who treats you like you've never, whatever, they've done it all. You just think they haven't. And when you get to be our age, you realize your mother was right. So, I mean, it's all the cliches, but they're so true. Be yourself is number one, because it's, everyone, all the superstars of the world, I find, I mean, and maybe, I don't know, like in show business, you can tell me better than I can. But, the superstars of life to me are people who are just themselves, who like accept themselves, celebrate themselves, and they're gorgeous and they're fabulous. And that's the same if they have big boobs or small boobs, or gorgeous or funny looking or whatever. You got to embrace yourself and just be who you are. And I tell the story that when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Mia Farrow in Rosemary's Baby. Like, I thought, Mia Farrow, my God, I want to be Mia Farrow. I want to be like, have a pixie cut and have everybody think I'm cute, be so fashion, and all the guys want to me, but I'm good for fashion stories. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. And I was watching Rosemary's Baby once, and Ruth Gordon walks in, or maybe it's when she's at the door and like they look through the people, Ruth Gordon, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm never going to be Mia Farrow. I'm Ruth Gordon. I am Ruth Gordon.
Honey.
And you know what? We are as Ruth Gordon on her best day. We've got the clothes, we've got the look, we've got everything. We're already there. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being Ruth Gordon. In fact, being Ruth Gordon's better than being Mia Farrow in many ways.
Yeah.
But unless you're spending your whole day thinking, I want to be Mia Farrow, you got to own it. You got to love it. You got to be excited. Right. Ruth Gordon's the one who won an Oscar, not Mia Farrow. Ruth Gordon's the one who people remember. Ruth Gordon steals the scenes. And you have to sort of really see who you are, love it, and go with it. That's what I think. So
well, I have to say it's been the gift of my 12-step program is that to learn and know that it was not a program for self-improvement, but self-acceptance. And the older I get, the more I just accept myself. And like, I have fallen a little in love with myself. I got to say, it does come with age.
I've fallen in love with you too. And I think that, that is a magical thing because nothing is more attractive also than confidence or self-love, self-acceptance. And so it's like, that's the people who you're driven to. And it's not, and there's a whole other separate kind of thing that comes with being unhappy with who you are, or striving to be something else, or pretending. Now, I don't have to pretend anything, and it's so relaxing. I mean, it's so relaxing to not have to pretend to be something else, or to pretend to know something you don't. So many people think they have to act like they have to know, be experts in everything. And I'm an expert in the things I'm an expert in, and there are other things I am happy to say I'm an idiot. I don't know how to do it. I have to Google a YouTube tutorial on how to put the Instant Pot lid on, and it's okay with that.
I'm okay with it too. Also, just being a creative, I think, at least for me, I'm curious to hear what you say. It helps in that journey.
Totally.
It comes quick when you really start to express yourself or surround yourself with people that are like-minded.
Yeah. And I think if you're not, when you look around you and you're not like, wow, I'm in the best place in the world, you're in the wrong place. And if the people who you hang out with, or the people you're with, whether they're your family or your friends, don't think you're the greatest thing ever, you're with the wrong people. There are people out there who think you are perfection exactly as you are. And I don't mean necessarily just for sex, but I mean just for everything. It's like, there are people out there, and that's one reason why I don't understand why people kind of, where I was born in Chicago and grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, Hanover Park, Illinois. And a lot of people who I grew up with never left. They still live there, and I love to go visit. It's a great place and everything, but it's an accident of birth. It's a geographical accident that you're born where you're born. That's a good way to put it. How could you, so to me, it's like, I've gone, as I said, when I go around the world, I'm grateful that I live in New York because it makes me appreciate it in a way. But how, it's one thing to me, go try other places and then you say, you know what, Hanover Park, Illinois is really the place for me. I'm going to go back. But so many people never leave. And so I don't relate to that at all. I think you got to get out there and see the world and try different things. And you have to be afraid. Other advice I give to people is don't be afraid to fall on your face, and don't be afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing. Because I'm at my happiest when I'm dropped in a situation like doing yoga, for example. I do yoga now, which I haven't the past 2 weeks because I've been riding my bike instead. But not that you can't do both, but between the vacuuming and the Instant Pot YouTube tutorials, it's like I'm slammed.
You are booked.
But with yoga, it's like the first time I went to yoga, it's like I didn't have the right clothes. I didn't know what to do. I'd never done anything.
I remember.
You're in there with people who are like being the human pretzel and stuff like that. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I was in India for this yoga intensive thing. I was like, oh God, I'll bring my Chanel bag. I have this Chanel nylon bag that I hadn't really used. And I was like, I'll have Chanel will be my yoga bag. I'm going to be so fashion. Yeah. And like no one in this dump cared like what Chanel was. They didn't know, they didn't care. They're like, who's this freak with his nylon bag? But anyway, and it, there's nothing, no one expected anything from me. And then that's a very liberating moment when nobody expects anything from you. And I think, so I love to be in those situations where that's where you really learn. So that's the mother advice. But again, it's whatever your mother said. Although who knows, maybe some people out there have crazy mothers who gave them terrible advice. I don't know.
Not me.
Ours didn't.
Not mine. Yeah.
Ours didn't. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mindy, if you don't mind, I'm going to give everyone a chance to take a little break and just put a little business in here for our audience. Just reminding everyone that if they haven't gone to mondayswithmindy.com yet, please do. Not only will you find links to connect with the podcast on all the major podcast networks, you'll be able to watch us and link up with us on YouTube. If you do watch us on YouTube and you like what you see, please give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, come back for more. We're always reading your comments. So if you've got any comments, please add those in there too. And if you want, or if you have any questions about our guest or you want to learn a little bit more about him, mondayswithmindy.com, there's going to be a whole section featuring Mr. Mickey. So you can learn a little bit about him. You'll have all of his social media handles if you want to connect with him directly or follow him and learn a little bit more. That being said, I'm going to now transition into an advertisement. And since we don't have a sponsor yet, we've decided that Paper Magazine will be our honorary sponsor for this episode of Mondays with Mindy. Paper Magazine is a New York City-based magazine focusing on fashion, pop culture, nightlife, music, art, and film. Its mission is to introduce their readers to groundbreaking people and ideas that will influence the trends of tomorrow. Get your subscription today by going to papermag.com. That link is also on mondayswithmindy.com, so you can grab it there.
How you like them apples?
Look at you taking care of business.
I mean, did we score paper points or did we score paper points?
You already have the maximum paper points already, Mindela, anyway.
Thank you. I am such a fan of your work in the magazine and what you guys do over there. All right, so deep dive into kind of the reason, not deep. Maybe we'll just do a little backstroke into it. The reason Christian and I kind of started this whole thing was that, especially during this time, it's necessary for me to be around creatives, and I get inspired and do what I do and percolate ideas. So I just miss doing that. So we want to talk to you about your creative process, whatever that means to you and how you define it, and your trajectory into becoming kind of the writer that you are and the creative that you are. So how do you define it?
Well, I'm a big procrastinator, which I'm working on. And at 53, fingers crossed, I get a grip on that. But, I just, creativity to me can be a little messy and can be a little spontaneous. But at the same time, working at a magazine, there are time frames. So you have to sort of be able to turn it on and do it. And of all people that I'm going to quote, Claire Booth-Luce once said, the only thing really you need to do to write is to be to apply the seat of the pants to the seat of the chair. You just have to, you know what I mean?
Nice.
Which I always thought oh, she's a crazy, she doesn't get it this, but it's really true. You kind of sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And and I do love creative people. Again, they can be a little bit messy. I also am in awe of people who have another type of brain and who I can't even look at an Excel spreadsheet. It just gives me hives and I can't read it and it's just a nightmare. And there are people who look at an Excel spreadsheet and it's like they're looking at the most beautiful Dyson vacuum cleaner they've ever seen.
Yes. I'm one of them.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad.
Computer code is their porn.
Yeah. The world needs all the types of people. But
yes.
So, but have been working on this book for a little while, and I'm the worst. I will do anything I will make gazpacho. I will with my succulents before I sit down. But so I need to be better about that, I have to say. And I've actually been I've been working with a hypnotist who also is in my highlights on my Instagram, Morgan Yakis, who Mind Waves is her Instagram handle. She's a human cartographer and deals with hypnosis, kind of just to sort of be better about sort of applying myself to work. Because also I'm the type of person who, I try to do, I do my work. I try to do everything before I do stuff that's not really necessarily fun, but sort of personal work. So I think I need to sort of be better about that. But I love telling stories, and I feel like I do have a flair for it. And everyone in my family has a wonderful flair for telling stories and is very funny, and they're all freaks and addicts and etc. But they're also a very smart and amusing and good storytellers. So and Kim Hastreiter, who started Paper, told me once, when I first was at Paper, I was an intern and I was kind of the star intern. I had a BA in Spanish from Purdue, and then I'd come to New York to get a BFA at Parsons in fashion design, and ended up failing a class my senior year, so never finished. But so I did 3.5 years. I did 7.5 years of college in something things that have nothing to do with my job. So think about, which is great. It's all personal growth and development.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when I was an intern, the woman who gave me a job was the managing editor at the time, Wendy Gabriel, asked me if I would interview Vanessa Paradis, who was married to Johnny. I don't know if she was married to Johnny Depp at the time. This was 1992. So maybe not yet. But and I was obsessed at that time. I was obsessed with pop culture. I still am in a way, but I knew every new book and movie and actor and whatever. I was obsessed, and I was obsessed with her, of course. And I said, but I'm not a writer. And they're like, it doesn't matter if you're a writer, and because Kim said, if you can talk, you can write. And that's, and that is completely true, I think.
Yes,
and,
it is.
Yes, you need fact checking. Yes, you need editing, et cetera. But it's But, I sort of fought it, and I was like, no, no, I can't. So I kept saying no. And I mean, looking back, I could have hung out like at the Royalton Hotel or something for the day with Vanessa Paradis, and that would have been a fun, great thing in 1992 for me. I would have felt very excited about it. But I talked them out of it. And then again, like a month later, Wendy again, Lord Lover for pushing me further, they needed someone to interview Rupert Everett, the actor, who had written a book called Hello, Darling, Are You Working? And I think he was openly gay at the time. I mean,
yes.
But, and I was obsessed. So but again, I said, I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write. And then, so finally, Wendy just said, listen, pretend you've already interviewed him and sit down and write the introductory paragraph of what you would say about the interview, like what you would write.
Right.
And we'll look at it together. And I promise if it's terrible, I will not make you do it. But I know it won't be terrible. I know you can do it. Just do it. So I did that sort of just to shut her up. And she was like, and of course it was a paragraph only about me. I hardly even mentioned Rupert Everett. It was just about like me. And so she was like, no, I insist you do it. You have to do it. So I skipped a half a day of school, my studio draping class, and met him on the roof of the Peninsula Hotel. And he was in like a mesh tank top and a swimsuit. And we talked about jock straps. And it was so gay. It was like the gayest thing ever. And I, wrote the story. It was a teeny little like quarter page news thing or something, and got like paid $35 for it. And it was amazing. And so at the time at Parsons, I was not doing very well. They were not into me. I was not into them. I was a bit of a drug addict. So I was like a mess. And I thought, like, here I am going to school where nobody is excited to see me and being miserable. Or, but here on this other side, I could hang out on the roof of the Peninsula Hotel with Rupert Everett in swimwear, like talking about jock straps, and get paid $35. It's like, this is the dream come true. So that's sort of how I became a writer. And, for years would be like, well, I'm not really a writer. I do, I just know how to talk. But, so I sort of got forced into it and, led into it. And I'm so glad that I was, because here I am today.
What's the trajectory then that made you then become, and you are, one of the most beloved fashion figures? People want you around, and that goes for editors and designers, and everyone wants you around. When did it sort of dawn on you that like, oh, this is my thing and I'm really good at it?
I can't remember exactly when, because, I think we all have, I certainly had imposter syndrome where I'd be like, oh, like I always really was insistent about sitting in my official assigned seat at a fashion show, because I thought someone was going to come and kick me out. And even if I wasn't really had the invite, I always wanted to have the invite and I would RSVP and write okay to make sure but who knows? I just sort of, because where I come from, nobody did anything really creative for a job. Everyone's parent, my dad was a pharmacist. People worked in offices. People, nobody. I never knew anyone whose family was involved in anything kind of remotely creative. And
well, the fact that you still stay such a fan, and I don't mean like Gaga Guga fan, but a true like you're plugged into it and so appreciative. Not generally. But
genuinely,
all the time. Genuinely. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, had a mind fart there. Sorry about that. Okay, we're not stroking.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you. That I see it when I'm around you. I mean, people sense that about you.
Yeah. Well, to me, we're going through some terrible times, and I recognize that, and I can confront terrible things. But at the same time, the world is so magical. I mean, here we are. Yes, the fact that we're friends, magic and meant to be, destiny. The fact that we have the technology to sit here and have a conversation, which we love to do anyway. Yeah. For like, this is our job today, is to do this. Like, I would pay to do this. You know what I mean? I would trade my KitchenAid blender for this. But in a way, to me, the most important part of it was going to paper for the first time, because we had to do an internship when I was at Parsons. And obviously, because I was in fashion, everyone sort of did an internship at like Michael Kors or someplace fashion-y. Right. And this is, again, before the internet. And I swear to God, I went in a room and there was like a bulletin board with like index cards with internships written on them, sort of for people to apply to. And I saw there was one, and there was one for Francesco Scavullo, the photographer, now deceased, who was a legend, who shot all the covers of Cosmo, and like and I I knew of him and was like, Francesco Scavulo, imagine working there. That would be amazing, knowing nothing about photography. So anyway, so I make an appointment and I go in there, and they were like, I get there and they're like, okay, so you're from Parsons, so you're a photography student. And I was like, no, I'm in fashion design. And they're like, they were horrified and confused. And they're like, well, why would you want to work here if you're not a photographer? I was like, I just think his work is amazing, and I think it would be really an interesting place to work. And the woman who interviewed me did not agree with my assessment of the situation. Yes. And so anyway, I didn't get that job. And then when I had done my junior year of Purdue in Madrid, because I was a Spanish major, then graduated and went back, graduated a semester early, my parents had moved to Daytona Beach, Florida. I worked for a semester at the Hawaiian Tropic Suntan Lotion Factory on the night shift. That's like a whole other story.
Seriously.
Went back then went crazy, like you don't even know, like beyond. And but they loved me. I have to say, I scaled the heights. I got so many raises in just like the 4 months I was there. But I think when I left, I was making $5.95 an hour. But whatever, it was fabulous and fascinating. But so I went back to Madrid again, and while I was in Madrid again, that's when I decided that I was going to study fashion design and move to New York. And while I was in Madrid, I lived in this kind of pension kind of thing, so where we shared a kitchen and bathrooms and things like that. And one of the women who lived there was friends with Wendy, the woman I mentioned who gave me the writing stuff. So when I moved to New York, this girl who I'd lived with went to Barnard with Wendy.
Wow.
Introduced us socially. And I remember I had discovered paper at that point and was obsessed with it. I would like go to the newsstand and be like, oh my God, is the new issue of paper here? And they're like, you were here a week ago and just got it to give us a month. Stop bothering us. Yeah. So anyway, so she said, oh, you should be an intern if you really love paper. And I was like, what's an intern? At that point, I don't know if that must have been after the Francesco Scavulo thing, but whatever. Again, I didn't even realize everybody had interns. Right? I don't know what I was thinking. So anyway, so I went in and like they ended up hiring me, but I was again so afraid that I wasn't cool enough. And they hired me, and I kind of was so happy to be there. And I was having this parallel experience of at Parsons being like a bit of a freak. And now Parsons is amazing. Parsons, like if you're a freak, they say like, be freaky, do your thing. Yeah. At that time, they were like, do not
very
be a freak.
conformist. Yeah.
They were like, like Michael Kors is as freaky as you can be. Like Marc Jacobs, they even thought like Marc Jacobs.
As I talked with Isaac about, it was a lot of beige and necro.
Totally. Like, and so the people, so I'm a little bit of a freak. And so I really was not celebrated there or accepted, or, it was not the best experience. Although, you learn a lot. I learned a lot anyway, but
serendipitously you end up with paper.
Yeah, I did crazy stuff. But anyway, so then I was having that experience. And like I said, with Rupert Everett in swimwear, I went to paper and they like loved my crazy clothes. They loved, they were so welcoming. And I just felt like these are my people. You know what I mean? Like I feel right so at home here. And that could have been at Morgan Stanley. And I would have been like, okay, I would do a hedge fund now. I still don't understand how a hedge fund works. How you're going to make money from losing. But you know what I mean? But so that was really it. So I think you got to find, that's why I also say that the advice I give to kids is like, think of your fantasy dream place to be. And that could be the White House. That could not now, or maybe not, or the Hoover Vacuum Factory, or, and I found that at paper, and that sort of made me blossom. And I had always loved fashion. And, my mentor was Kim, and she was the fashion editor, and she had founded it. And so I kind of, followed in her footsteps, and I became the photo editor, not really knowing anything about photography. Take that, Francesco Scavulo, woman who wouldn't hire me.
I was just going to say, and yet you have been the mastermind behind some of the most iconic photo shoots ever.
And we worked with Francesco Scavulo a few times after that, so that was
amazing.
Wow. But so yeah, I think just really sort of fitting in, and I ended up going to shows, and it's such a weird abstract job to do, like to go to fashion shows and to like write about fashion, or to
but it's more about that. You also profile people, and
absolutely.
It's more
absolutely.
than
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, Mickey, what inspires you now, currently, like right now in this moment? What or who inspires you? Because I know it changes obviously along the way.
Yeah. Well, I still love fashion, and I will, even though there are lots of necessary changes happening in fashion. There's nothing like an incredible fashion show, like to really just get your juices flowing. It's kind of like, you know, what can you do? It's really kind of amazing. And so I still consider myself a fashion person, even though we have a fashion director now who deals with that stuff really full time.
Right.
I do this body positivity column that I don't do as often as I should, called Fat and All That, and that I love.
Yes.
So I love sort of just, I guess it's always been about people. So I love people, giving people a voice, or giving people, you know, shining a light on something that's amazing. Whether that's, I love theater, I love doing theater, I love royal history, and I love current royals. I love kind of showcasing fabulous people who wouldn't necessarily fit in, you know, a certain box and always be showcased. So that can be somebody who's a drag queen, that could be somebody who's a theater actor, that could be someone who's just a fabulous fat person. You know what I mean? So, so in the end, it's really sort of the people. And I love great photos. I love sort of telling stories, I guess, is the thing too. I mean, as we were talking about, because I am a storyteller. So, and
you've been always very vocal about your sobriety.
Yes.
But really, it's only in the last couple of years that you have kind of gone on this personal journey that you're now writing about and touching, I mean, millions of people through this decision to join Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
You doing a deep dive into yoga.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, you know, I have gone to Weight Watchers off and on for like decades, and I've been sober for 23 years. So it's the kind of thing also that, you know, I always thought like, oh, you know, I mean, we can't really talk about openly, not because it's bad, but I think, you know, I thought like, well, I don't know, people didn't seem to talk about it. So I thought, and I remember the first time I posted like several years ago about a photo of myself from when I was a heroin addict. And I just remember thinking like, oh, I don't know if it's okay for me to like talk about AA, maybe like, or being sober. Maybe some people will think it's bad and get upset because, you know, it's an anonymous program. But I just was like, well, you know, it. This is how I feel. This is what it is. And people responded very positively to it. And I don't certainly ever share about other people's experiences or who I see there or who's involved.
Of course.
But, you know, it seems natural to me to talk about those things. Right. And the same way about my weight. And, you know, I always say that this Fat and All That column that I do, I only do it because Drew Elliott, who was the editor of paper at the time, but is now at MAC Cosmetics, you know, suggested it. And I was like, who's going to care about me talking about like I ate the French fries, I didn't eat the French fries. And meanwhile, it's the defining issue of my life in many ways. Because even I found that like when you peel away the sobriety, I was a crystal meth addict. You know, and that made me skinny. And so that skinniness and fatness was really wrapped up in my drug addiction too. So, and I just think it's
really, you just put yourself so out there. I mean, it was very brave, Mickey. I mean, it was gorgeous too. It's very unusual that someone does that to the level that you were doing.
It's crazy. You should all do it. Everybody should be open about everything, because the thing is, it's so liberating. And again, it's sort of what I was saying about how when you kind of just surrender to not knowing what you're doing, and you're kind of just like, okay, who cares how I'm going to look? And I sort of learned that going to foreign countries, because, and again, why travel is so great. Like, you're going to get stared at no matter what. Like, we will get, like, I go to India in places where they've never seen a white person, and they like come up and they want to have their picture taken with me, not because they know what Paper Magazine is, some in like the big cities maybe, but they just are like, look, a white person. And you know, so you're already going to be looked at, so you're sort of like, well, I might as well then carry my favorite handbag if they're going to look at me anyway. Who cares? You know what I mean? And I think the same with in terms of being open. It's like, the things that I find the things that I don't want to talk about, and now specifically like the issues that we're all surrounded with now, it's like people are like, oh, these conversations are hard. It's like, if it's hard, that's the sign you got to do it. Like the easy conversations don't do. It's really sort of the hard conversations that are important. And it's not hard for me to talk about anything, really. I mean, there are topics that I don't know what to say about. There are a few, but I could say, look, this is how I feel. I don't know what to say. But like, I am an expert in being fat because I've been fat for a long time. That doesn't mean my experience is the same as everybody else's. And I also was like, I was such a devoted drug addict. I was like, I would have gotten an A+ if they graded the drug addicts, because I put that before everything else. I jeopardized everything for drug addiction. And I sort of wish I could dedicate myself to this book the way I dedicated myself to drugs. Like, I wish I had half that dedication. And that's the goal. But so And I think, people, it's funny because people are like, oh, you're brave, or, oh, it's good that you're being vulnerable. And it's like, I just feel like I'm just being honest. I'm just telling people what I think and what I've gone through. And especially, I think it's because, these people who haven't been heard, whether it's fat people, whether it's people of color, whether it's Black people, these people need to be heard. And they're like, if you're not heard for a long time, it's like such a relief to be heard. And that's like where the healing can start. And that's where like the hard work.
Also that you're not alone.
Yeah, totally.
You're not 100%. Alone.
And people who've responded to things I've written about, like food issues, I'm completely shocked by. And because it's, people like a friend of ours, Mindy, who's like super muscly and like has an incredible body, I would think never thought twice about anything. I know, like it's that. All And he said, oh my God, that really struck me. That touched me so much. And I was like, well, how could you even relate? And he said, I've been starving for 25 years. And it's like, that makes sense. Yeah. Everybody is thinking, everyone with big boobs, not everyone, but most people with big boobs thinks, I wish they were smaller. Most people with small boobs thinks, God, why can't I have big boobs? Yeah. Everyone is kind of like playing this game of like, something's missing from me. What's wrong? And everybody loses at that game.
I have to say, it's been incredibly inspirational for me to see you go from using straps, to stretch yourself, to doing a friggin' back bend, Mickey. So it's like, what I'm saying is, whether it's courageous or not, whatever, but it is incredibly inspirational and aspirational. And I look for those things in my life because I too, my natural state is to laze. So I'm not a real, I motivate
from the working since you were 12. I've said, you know what I mean? So it's funny.
I'm very busy from the neck up, but the body tends to want to just laze and be fed grapes. So having said that, I want to thank you. I adore you. Thank you for this. You are always an inspiration to me. I cherish you so much, and I can't wait to squeeze your person.
Soon, hopefully.
You can get as many squeezes as you need. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mickey Boardman.
What a pleasure.
All right, Mindy. Well, that was a very interesting conversation. I'm so grateful to hear how open he was and how inspiring some of those stories are. Because, I know Mickey as well, and there's a lot of information that I didn't really realize. It's especially in this particular day and age to have somebody that's so transparent. And kind of what that shows us, maybe sometimes how closed off we are, and how if we just open up a little bit more to other people, it's a bright light for more to see. So I think this was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I'm so grateful that he took time out of his busy schedule vacuuming and cooking that he could talk to us. But he really is like such in my life, and just a constant inspiration. And he's become very aspirational in his middle age.
Yeah, I like it. It was
with the cooking and the yoga, and it's
nice to see the universe kicking him in the pants to try new things. I mean, that's good for all of us, right?
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Definitely so.
Well,
thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for another great show. Thank you to our listeners and our viewers for watching and for tuning into us. We are grateful to have you for yet another week. We're looking forward to coming back to you next week with Mondays with Mindy. Like I said earlier, if you want to check us out, go to mondayswithmindy.com. There's lots of information about Mickey there. There's a little bit more information about both Mindy and I. You can follow up on our previous guests as well as connect to all the other podcasts, our YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera. We are, like I said, so appreciative that you're coming along on this ride and this journey with us. And we look forward to talking and seeing you next week. Bye, everybody.